Okay, now we're going to look at section 2, the rise of Sumer, which is one of the world's first advanced civilizations, and they also had one of the first religious civilizations. So what you have here is they create what's called a political unit called a city-state, and each city-state was its own little country. It would be like if we built a wall around Keville and Paducah and Benton and Mayfield and Murray. They would all be their own city-states, and they would trade with each other and they would deal with each other, but they wouldn't be in one state like Kentucky, and that state wouldn't be part of a larger nation. Every little city is its own political unit. They had a strong army, and as I said, they built walls for protection around their city. Each state consisted of the city with the wall around it and the countryside or the farmland in which they farmed. The amount of countryside depended on how strong their army was and how much their army could take over. City-states fought each other to gain more land, and the more land you gained, the more power you gained. And city-states would gain and lose power over different periods of time. The first ruler that we talked about, and this would be a good guide for your section 2 facts, an Akkadian ruler built the first permanent army. He defeated all the city-states of Sumer, and then he even conquered northern Mesopotamia. He established the first empire in the world. That would be Sargon the First. And remember, an empire is land with different territories and people under a single rule. Sargon ruled for 50 years. After his death, his empire lasted only a century or 100 years longer. Sumerians also practiced polytheism. Remember, we talked about poly is many, theism means God, so they believed in many gods. That would be another fact you could use. Sumerians were polytheistic. Their gods had enormous powers. Their priests had great statues built in Sumer in honor of these gods, and the priests performed the religious ceremonies. The social hierarchy was where we had our first rank or class system. Kings were at the top, priests were next, skilled craftspeople, merchants, and traders, large working class of farmers and laborers, and then slaves were down at the bottom. Kings were at the top, and they claimed to be chosen by, or their rule was by gods. This is the first example of divine rights of kings, where kings would say God chose them to be the ruler, and you couldn't question that. Men generally held the political power and made the laws. Women stayed home and took care of the children. Education was usually reserved for the men, but if you were rich enough, ladies, you could get an education. Some women even got to be a priestess. Edhuduana, a priestess, wrote hymns, and she is the first female writer in history. That's another good fact. Enheduanna is a first female writer in history. Okay, that is the second section. A lot of facts you can use in there. Sargon, polytheistic, social classes, the first female writer. So we will stop this one and we will move on to section 3.